And hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Jon Caspian for Giga-Bites TV, and we are joined today by our very special guest, Mr. Uncle Adam. How you doing, Adam?
Doing pretty well, thank you very much.
All right, good. Let me just make sure one setting here real quick. I gotta make sure that the audio. We were just speaking about possible technical difficulties. And can you try it again? Say something.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, that's perfect. Wonderful. All right. So, you have a new app called Gamefor, which you've just released to the public. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but first I want to hear a little bit about your story and how you got started with YouTube, and because it's huge. You got over 70,000 subscribers now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about 73 or so, 73,000 or so.
Nice. Yeah, how'd you get into it?
It started, I've been into wargaming for a long time. When I was probably in middle school, I played Battletech a little bit with a friend, and then kind of didn't really do much in that. I did more in like role-playing stuff for a while until I got into college, at which point I kind of got back into Battletech. I got into some other stuff that wasn't exactly miniatures wargaming, but it's more of it like wargaming stuff like Car Wars and things like that, a bunch of older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then a friend of mine had a copy of Space Hulk, so we started playing Space Hulk, and that's when I started to learn about.
That's a great game.
Yeah, that's when I started to learn about the world of like 40K and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and the Emperor and the Space Marines and the Gene Stealers and all that kind of stuff. And I started actually playing 40K in 5th edition, so I was a little bit, it took me a while actually to get into that portion. I started doing more kind of weird indie like skirmish games, and I started to get into terrain for a while and stuff like that before I actually really got into 40K. But yeah, I got into 40K in 2008ish or 2009. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2010, Beasts of War was talking about their new website that they had just launched in a video, and they also mentioned Gen Con in the title. And I was going to be going to Gen Con because living in Wisconsin, I had been going to Gen Con since 92, I think. And so I thought, oh, great, maybe they'll be there, and I could, say hi or whatever. That's kind of a cool thing. So what happened is that they just said at the end of the video, hey, if you're going to Gen Con, mention it in the comments below. So I did. And then I went to bed because it was late, it was midnight or whatever. I got up the next morning, and I had an email from Beast of War saying, do you have an HD camera? Do you have a microphone? Would you be interested in talking to these people? That kind of stuff. So I sent them a recording just so they could tell that I wasn't, a crazy person or whatever.
Right.
Or any more than usual, I guess. And so, and so then I started working kind of on the side for them, I was the U.S. correspondent, so I was working Gen Con, Adepticon, different wargaming-related events like that. I started doing some unboxings and things like that in my basement and whatnot, and sending them the footage, and they were editing it all together, putting it on their channels and or on their channel. And then in late 2012, I decided I wanted to start my own channel and do my own thing. And I think that, I didn't want to have it be one of those things where it was a conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. So I decided to just, it's amicable, but we stopped working together, and I started my channel in March of 2013. So this upcoming March, in about another little over a month, or a little under a month actually, will be my 5-year anniversary of doing Tabletop Minions.
Wow.
Yeah. So
nice.
I mainly started it because I wanted to learn video production.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I wanted to teach myself video production and start making videos and putting them out on the internet. But, like when you're a kid, I've said this a bunch of times, when you're a kid in school and they give you paper and crayons and tell you to draw something, a lot of times you're like, I don't know what to draw. And a lot of kids will draw the stuff that they like, the hobbies that they do. Maybe it's football, maybe it's race cars, maybe it's dinosaurs, So for me, excuse me, it was one of those situations where I wanted to make sure that if I was going to be making videos to learn how to make videos, that I would make videos about something I had a passion for, something I was interested in. And so that's where Tabletop Minions kind of like started and went from there. I was just making videos about, how to paint and wargaming and miniatures and all that kind of stuff. And over time, it has morphed a bit to more of a channel that's a little bit more about how to how to get into the hobby if you're new. It can be very daunting. There is, it's way different than a video game. It's way different than a board game. You get home after making your purchase, and now you have these pieces. You have to cut off the sprues, and you have to put them together, and sand them, and glue them, and then prime them, and then paint them, and all that. But it's not as difficult as you may think. There's a lot of technique. Some people think it's all skill, and at the high end, it is. But when you're first starting, there's a bunch of techniques that can make you look like a way better painter than you might think you are. So that's the kind of stuff I try to teach in the videos. And also the more philosophical and psychological stuff about how to keep yourself motivated to keep painting and how to do those types of things.
That stuff is some of my favorite of your work, actually. How did you was there ever an aha moment where you said, you know what, I need to make more of those type of videos?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been, there's a couple of different things. To be perfectly honest, those types of videos are generally technically easier because it's a one camera affair. I don't have to have a camera pointed at what I'm working on, and then another camera pointed at me, and then the editing and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot easier on the back end. So there's some benefit to that. But I think that also just because I've been doing it for so long, there was just a couple of videos that I did initially in that vein that really, people were responded quite well to. And I thought, well, heck, I've got a whole bunch of, what may seem to me to be dumb opinions that if people want to hear them, I'll be glad to tell them. And so those have worked out really well. And I've had a lot of people at conventions and things like that come up to me and say, I really learned a lot about, I've never had anybody come up to me and say, boy, that video you did about how to paint a statue was really awesome. I've had, I know that it's helped because a lot of people have watched it. I have had tons of people come to me and say that video about how to use a wet palette and how to make your own has really made my painting better. So it's not that there's not benefit to those, but when people come up to me at conventions, more often than not, it is, I'm really happy that I watched your video about, the pursuit of perfection, or you just finish it, or lots of different things like that. So as whatever I can do to help motivate and get people painting is, that's what I want to do.
That's amazing. That's actually when I was in the middle of a rut for painting, I came across your video on that subject, and I was like, what are the odds? I don't know if YouTube's algorithm is just magical, but I was just scrolling through the subscriptions, and sure enough, your video on, just get the paint down. I was like, huh. Well, wow, how about that? So it's motivated me. I mean, I just painted a Winter Child from Dust, 1947, I guess radiation, superhuman. I painted him in, I want to say, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's not perfect, if you get a nice, because I also do photography for miniatures, and so if you get down really, really close, you're like, oh no. But from a tabletop level, it's fine.
See, and that's the thing about photography. I did a video about that as well, is that after you get done with a model and you're all done with it, take some pictures of it, because you will find stuff you didn't notice. And I don't know if it's just a trick of the eye when you're looking at it in person that you don't notice those things, and then when you look at a photograph, they immediately leap out at you. But I do that all the time. If I think I'm finished, I'll take some pictures, even with my cell phone, and I will get some surprising results, like, oh, I completely missed the end of the hilt on that guy's sword, or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? How did you, you were talking about 40K, how did you get into specifically talking about a lot of 40K and such?
Well, I mean, the thing is that 40K, Games Workshop in general, they're the biggest in the industry. So that's what a lot of people think of when they first think about miniatures. A lot of times I'll explain to people who are gaming adjacent, or are even maybe board gamers or something like that. And you say, I like to paint tabletop miniatures, and I like to do all that kind of stuff. And they kind of give you a quizzical look, and then you go, like Warhammer. And then they're like, oh yeah, I know Warhammer. Excuse me. But that kind of stuff is a reasoning why. Plus, it's the thing that I generally like. Their models are amazing. There are other companies out there that are doing really, really well now and making really dynamic, super interesting models. Weird, the makers of Malifaux, those models are amazing, and in good, nice, really hard plastics and the kind of stuff like that makes modelers happy. So there's other alternatives, certainly, but I find that people sometimes are like, well, you should talk about other stuff. And generally, the thing is with my channel is it's not a news channel. It's not generally a reviews channel. So I talk about the stuff that I actually play. I don't generally go, okay, well, this new Kickstarter came out. and I got to talk about it and whatever, because I don't do it that way. I generally talk about the stuff that I play. So if there's something maybe that you like that I'm not talking about, it's generally because it's something that I don't play, and so I feel kind of weird talking about stuff that I don't really know a ton about, hopefully. So
Right.
yeah.
No, that's a good point. What's your favorite faction?
Gosh, let's see.
I know, tough question, right?
Well, a little bit. I started with Tau, and then it was back in 5th edition when they were kind of terrible, and then I sold them, and then like 6th and 7th came along, and they got super good for a while. The reason I started with Tau was just because I looked at them and I'm like, these guys will be super easy to paint, which they technically were, but they're kind of hard to build. I mean, like every like fire warrior is like 12 pieces or something like that,
Really?
including the little antenna on top of their head is like a separate piece. Like,
Oh, God.
So they take really long to build, and you can't start to customize them too much, which is why I then sold them and got into Chaos Space Marines, because there's lots of crazy stuff you can do with them.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you go Nurgle and you can even be vaguely useful with green stuff, you can do some really fun stuff. So I would guess probably Nurgle, but I am currently building, actually it's built, I've got a 2,000 point Primaris faction for Space Marines.
Nice.
They're built, the bases are all textured. I've got custom shoulder pads on all of them for my own custom chapter, and the priming will start very soon. I'm going to airbrush prime everything because it's Wisconsin. It's currently 19 outside, which is actually the warmest it's been in several days. So it's not good rattle can weather.
Nope.
But with an airbrush, it helps a lot. So I finally got some of the color primer that I can put in my airbrush that I need for this project. So I'll be able to start that pretty soon.
Nice, nice. Which chapter is it based off of?
It's going to be... originally, my plan several years back more than several years at this point, I was going to do Black Templar because I just liked the fluff and I liked kind of the look, and I did some test models. And then I started building. And the thing that I loved most about Black Templar from a modeler standpoint was they used to sell those boxes that just had all the shoulder pads and the tabards and all the cool parts in it. They're like $25, and it was all this special custom stuff just for Black Templars. Bolters that were like chained to their wrists and had like all the livery, but the heraldry and all that kind of stuff. And so I was really into that. And so I built a whole bunch of stuff. And then just as I was about to start painting, they folded them into the regular Space Marine Codex, and they weren't going to be getting their own codex anymore. So I was kind of bummed. So what I started doing instead was I'm like, all right, I'll make my own chapter that will use all that three-dimensional iconography, but I'm going to completely change the color scheme and stuff. So they're kind of they're basically kind of a darker blue, and then they have silver shoulder pads, but they still have the crosses and stuff on there, because it's based off of Black Templars. So I'm calling them Steel Cross currently. But nice. I think that the chapter tactics I'm going to use are probably going to be Ultramarines, just because I kind of foresee them as being like a second or third founding from the Ultramarines.
No, that's cool. I thought about when you're with your YouTube channel, how'd you meet Sam?
Actually, it's a funny story. So at the time when he and I first met, I was not married yet. And so I was living downtown here not here, but at home in Oshkosh. And there was a tattoo parlor directly underneath my apartment. So I was down there getting a tattoo, and the woman who owned the shop was the one giving me the tattoo, and I'd known her for a number of years. And then she had this employee who was this kind of tall, lanky guy with long hair, and he was over at his station, and he had like a little shelf above his station, and I was like, is that a golden demon? And that's when I first met Sam, and we started talking about like Warhammer and all that kind of stuff. And he had just won his first like silver and bronze, I think.
Wow, nice.
And so we became friends and everything. And I started telling him, I got him to, I kind of coordinated a commission. I don't know that he was really doing commissions too much at the time, but I coordinated a commission between him and a friend of mine to paint my friend's third edition Space Hulk set. Like, remember when they re-released Space Hulk like in 2007, 2008?
Oh yeah.
And everybody went nuts. So yeah, he painted that for him, and then we just kind of, like I said, he lives where I work is here in Appleton, so he lives here in town. But we've always lived kind of near each other. And a while back, long time ago, we decided, well, what if you came on the channel and just did some videos? And so we've been doing that. We took kind of a longer break for a while because I had moved studios and it was problematic in the basement, just as far as technical aspects and everything like that. So that's why the last 4 videos that we did, we actually filmed them at his place. But I'm going to be, in the beginning of March, moving into a new studio.
Ooh, really?
It's not huge. It's bigger than my old studio. My old studio, if I sat in front of the camera, if I spread my arms out and leaned a little bit each direction, I could touch the walls, which was a little problematic.
Yeah.
This is a bit bigger. It's above a coffee shop, and so it'll always smell nice too, I think. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to be hopefully being able to do more stuff there. One thing that I'll be able to start doing to some degree is also battle reports, because we'll have a little bit more space. So going to try to do some battle reports. I've never done any on my channel. Want to kind of make them my own. I'm not competitive or even sometimes strategic, so I don't know how much people will enjoy them. I will try to make them fun, and hopefully that will help. So we'll see how that goes. But those will be coming soon too. Probably first one might be after Adepticon, because pretty busy the rest of this month, and then I'm for the day job for Gamefor, we're going to the Gamma conference, the trade show in mid-March, and then be back for about 3 or 4 days, and then I'll be at Adepticon. So March will be a busy month.
And you're pretty close to Adepticon, aren't you?
Yeah, it's about a little less than 3-hour drive, so that's really nice. And because of that, like I just went to the Las Vegas Open a couple weeks back, and because I was flying, I could really only bring like a backpack with some equipment in it and like my carry-on with my clothes and stuff. When I go to Adepticon, we drive, and so I load the car down with equipment. I bring way more equipment, way more stupid equipment than I really need to, but I always do bring it. And so that's actually one of the many reasons why Adepticon is probably my favorite convention.
Nice. Now, you did mention just now Gamefor. Let's go ahead and segue into that.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about it, and also how you came up with the idea?
Well, actually, I didn't come up with it.
Really?
Actually, so what happened is that I worked for a company for about 8 years as my day job, and then that position was eliminated. That was in just after I hit 10,000 subscribers, so it was like late September of 2015. So I was kind of looking for work, and I was doing some freelance stuff because I've been a designer, predominantly web designer, since, it's been almost 20 years, which makes me feel old. But yeah, I've been doing it professionally since '98. So I knew a guy who worked for a small company that made mobile apps, and he said, hey, you should come work with us. So I started working here at Milk Can. This is where I'm at right now. I started working here in July of 2016. And one of the reasons that I got hired was because of my gaming background. It was also because, we do work for insurance companies and manufacturers and things like that. We do, business-to-business style apps and to pay the bills. But we're a small company, and everybody here is a gamer in some fashion. We've got a couple of war gamers between me and Jason, role-playing. Actually, Jason and Liff and there's a lot of different stuff. The only thing we don't have right now, I think, is we don't have anybody who plays CCGs competitively, what we've all played in the past. None of us really play frequently right now. But everything else, board games, RPGs, we've got, Jason and I both paint, obviously, that kind of stuff. So we all wanted to have this sort of app. They had come up with the idea of the app actually before I got hired. It was probably late 2015 when the 3 partners who started the company came up with the idea. And so when I got hired, part of the deal was to kind of finish a bunch of the market strategy and looking and searching and trying to find out what else was out there in the market, how big the market was, all that stuff. And then Christmas 2016 roughly is when the first lines of code were written. And so it took us about a year to get to the actual release. We released the app Gamefor back just before 2017 Christmas. So it's been less than 2 months. But the thing is it's because we had so much, we had to live, and it's a good problem to have, but we had a lot business, paying business to take care of, and this was always a bit of a side thing.
Mhm.
And it still is to a degree, except that now we've got at least 2 developers who are on it full time all the time.
Oh,
and
great!
Other developers
Nice.
are working on stuff like that. It's both for iOS and for Android. We developed both of the apps natively, so they're not. It's not like one of those programs where you do it once and then it kind of ports it to both, and then neither of them work super great. Each of them is written to look like the Android app looks like an Android app, and iOS app looks like an iOS app. But it was basically just a situation of a couple of the partners really wanted to be able to find people to play games with. And, people use Facebook, it's fine, except it's very siloed. If you don't find the right group of Texas, Dust players, well, then it's very difficult to just type in, I want to play a game of Dust, and be able to find that information. And there's also everything else that's going on with Facebook. Obviously, there's all the other, kitten pictures and this and that, and your Aunt Millie and all that. So we wanted to make a platform that was just aimed towards tabletop gamers. We hear all the time from tabletop gamers who say to us things like, I wouldn't even be on Facebook much anymore if it wasn't for the gaming, and it's becoming more and more difficult. I would like to find something where I wouldn't have to be on, Facebook anymore. We're also finding from stores that, and you can probably speak to this yourself, we're seeing now that Facebook's algorithm is blocking more and more output. If you like a store or you follow a store, there's a good chance you won't see some of the things they post because of the algorithm. And that's problematic. Obviously Facebook wants to make money, so they'll show it to more of your followers as a store if you pay them. With us, if you put the events in to the app as a store, and we've launched that ability now where you can become a verified store, so you can put in events into the app. As long as the person has it set in their thing to be within the range of your app, and they have the filter, like let's say they say, I don't play any CCGs, well then they won't see your Friday Night Magic. But if they do play CCGs and they've got their radius set, they'll always see it. There's no algorithm that says, well, we're going to hold back a little bit, we're not going to show. So we wanted it to be very direct and transparent, and have users be able to put in events. Like if they want to get together and play Catan at a local store, they can do that. If the store wants to put in events like Friday Night Magic, like X-Wing tournaments on Sundays, or whatever it is that they do, we want to make that very simple. We also want to we've got a second feature that's called looking for players. Looking for players is kind of like that cork board that almost every game store has, that has the 3x5 cards on it that say, hey, we're looking for a cleric on Thursday nights, for our D&D, or hey, I'm looking to play, whatever. So in that situation, people can post and say, I'm looking to play this game. There have been other apps out there that have tried to kind of do what we're doing, but they generally focus on the players. Very frequently it's, hey, look, there's 12 players in your area, why don't you make some friends? And tabletop gamers have a tendency to be kind of introverted, so like if you went to Gen Con and it was just a giant room, people standing around, and they were just like, well, start playing some games, that wouldn't work. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's a program and it says that this game is at this time, and so you go to that table and then you meet other people who want to play that game, and then maybe you make some friends. But that's what we want to do. We focus on the events. We focus on the looking for players. That's a person saying, I want to play this game. Is there anybody else out there who wants to do it? And then you can start to message back and forth. And then the third big thing in the app is the store finder. Right now, we've got somewhere north of 5,800 stores in the database worldwide. So as I mentioned before, the verified stores, so far this week, we verified a store in South Korea, at least one in Germany.
Nice.
We verified
us, Giga-Bites.
Yeah, you guys. We've verified a bunch of stuff. What we're trying to do right now is get a bunch of them that are local to us in our area, so that when we go to that Gamma trade show, the people who walk around the Gamma trade show aren't gamers. I mean, some of them probably are, but they're basically store owners. So we want to be able to show them on the phone and go, look, this is what it looks like when you've got a really, robust ecosystem in an area, and they can see all the information, they can see all that stuff. So that's basically kind of our big plan between now and Gamma, is to build up the kind of eastern Wisconsin area. We've got stores in Milwaukee currently, Oshkosh, Appleton, Fond du Lac, soon a couple more, Nina, Green Bay, things like that. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're going to be going to a small convention in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, it's February 23rd to the 25th, I think, something like that. So yeah, we'll be we're going to be going to more conventions and things. We're not planning on going to Gen Con, I don't think, because we didn't get in anywhere near, in time to get a booth. But like I said, we're at Gamma. We're considering Origins, which is in, I think, June or July. I'll be definitely at Adepticon, not as a booth, but I'll be, walking around talking to people. Some of the other guys are going to come down to Chicago area one day, and we'll go talk to a lot of different people and manufacturers and things like that. So yeah, it's been really interesting. Like I said, it's been very interesting to kind of do the research, figure everything out. My job, besides kind of spokesmodel and whatnot, is also to do a lot of the UX UI, so the user experience, user interface, and that kind of stuff. So working with the developers has been kind of great to get all these things kind of nailed together.
Yeah, I will say it's very intuitive. It's very responsive,
Thanks.
which is great. It's more minimum, which I like. I don't like an app to be like all like visuals and all kinds of like crazy loading things and stuff like that. I just like it kind of to be a little more straightforward, and the ability to filter out the type of games is super useful. Because I don't play collectible card games at all.
Sure.
So for me to see those events,
And as it goes on, I mean, as more people start using the app, that will become more and more important. Like right now, because it's new, it's kind of like a social media thing. Well, when you first start out, when Facebook first started out in 2003 or 2004 or whatever, there was not a lot of people that were on. So that was kind of a thing. So that's what we're trying to build. And we're prepared to take the time and to go. We can't, it can't be like instant and everybody's on. It takes time to build, which is one of the reasons we're focusing on stores. If the stores can see the value in this is a good thing for me to be able to get my events out to the people who follow my store, or even they don't even have to follow the store. That's the thing with Facebook. If you don't follow the store, it's hard to find their events. With this, all you have to do, because of the GPS type thing that you have in phones, and again, if you turn off location services, it still requires you to put in a zip code, because they need to show you stuff from somewhere. You know what I mean? So the trick is that it will at least show you all the different events going on near you, and then you might find some. We've talked to people who started looking through the store finder who were like, I didn't even know that store was near me. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So
how did you get the database of stores?
We basically did a lot of different searching across the internet. There are a bunch of different resources out there, but they're all kind of wildly sort of disparate from each other. And there's a lot of, manufacturers that are like, hey, look, these are the stores that we use and that we sell our product through. And it's a public listing. So we've basically it took a really long time. And since we've launched, we've had another maybe 2 to 3 dozen who've reached out who are like, hey, you didn't catch us, and can you add us to the thing? So we're always willing to do that. If a store is already in there, or even if they're not, if they contact us through the website, then we can we can verify the store, and then they can have access to their listing within the store finder. They can put in descriptions, a profile picture, their hours, and then when they post events from that interface, then they'll be able to, in the store, or I'm sorry, in the game listing, it will say event hosted by and the name of the store, as opposed to when a normal person does it, it doesn't say that extra little line in the scroll through. So it kind of helps the store stand out a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'll show it right here on my screen here. I know, Adam, you can't see this necessarily, but for those of you who are watching, you can see that it says the name of the event, hosted by Giga-Bites Cafe. It says what type of game it is, which is super useful. So BGM is board game. It says the date and the time. So this one says Saturday at 8 p.m. And it says 2 miles, because when I did it, I entered my zip code rather than my GPS location.
Sure.
But super useful. And then all you do is when you click on the event, you actually see the address. Now, does that take you to Google Maps yet?
Right now, if you go up into, if you go to the menu, I'm trying to do it just by memory because I can't see your screen. If you go into the upper right, there is a little dot up there.
Okay.
And I'm not 100% sure. I know with the store listings, I don't know if it does it with the game events. I'm looking at my own phone. If you go and look at a store, then up in that corner you can say get directions and get.
Yep, I see it. I'm showing it right now. So
see
what you
store
do
on
in
the
the app is, if you're here in the main thing, and it'll say game events and looking for players, you can go up to the top left and look for Store Finder. Let me come around, make sure I can see that. Go to Store Finder, and when you find the stores near you, just click on the store. It'll give you descriptions, like you can see here, Giga-Bites Cafe, the description of the store itself, hours, opening hours, which is really cool. You can message us if you want to. We'll get notified of that, just like in Facebook. And the really cool thing is you don't have to use Facebook integration. You can just use an email.
Yeah, we didn't want to have to go through the work with kind of Facebook and stuff like that on there's a lot of people, again, who don't use Facebook. So if that's kind of a requirement, it's problematic. Or people who don't like to, I don't personally like to link my, Google account to this thing. I don't like to link my Facebook account to that thing. I don't like kind of, because it's just it's a lot of trading information. So we wanted to have it kind of available that way. If you go, I don't know if you can see this at all, but if you do go into an event, an actual event detail is what we call it, where it shows the name of the event and all the information, the little dots up at the top right corner will show see store on map, and then you can just hit that and it will open up whatever map program.
Oh, great.
You set your phone, and then it will go from there. So yeah, we've got that too. It's just we wanted to make sure that it was something that was very useful for people, something that they can use pretty quickly and get what they need. Like the thing about Facebook in comparison is because there's so much other stuff and you're scrolling through so much stuff. We want this to be a very kind of quick interaction where you're going to look through, maybe answer a couple of messages, look through, see what's kind of new, that kind of stuff, and then go on with your day, send out some messages. It helps basically to really kind of facilitate you playing more games, which is really the whole point. All of us, we want to play more games, and I get people on the YouTube channel all the time who say, I'm really interested in some game, not necessarily 40K, because almost any time that you go to a store that sells that type of stuff, you can find games to play to some degree. But maybe they're interested in a game like Malifaux or Bolt Action, which has got a little bit less of a market share. And they're like, I really want to get into Bolt Action, but I don't know anybody in my area that plays. I can guarantee you there's somebody probably within 30 to 50 miles who probably plays, unless you live out in like Wyoming, there's only 500,000 people in the entire state. So that's maybe not the case. But
right. Well, there's 6 million in Atlanta, so...
Right, exactly. So in that situation, you may not know all the people, obviously, but if if everyone starts using an app like this, it's much easier to find them. Whereas, again, if you use something like Google or different Discords and things like that, I mean, you can do that, but each one's kind of its own sort of walled garden, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. This is a lot more transparent.
Right, and it's Giga-Bites. We love hosting the ecosystem, so to speak. Like we admin a bunch of the different Atlanta groups and whatnot.
Right.
But we don't want a walled garden, because ultimately, the more people you get connected, the more people you have in any given store. So we're all about that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you, as a store, can I send you a message for that event? So say you have like 10 different people attending, I don't know, a Saturday night event. Can I, as a store, send a message to those people on the app?
Right now, what we've got is on any given event, there is an event chat. So when you're looking again at the details page for the event where it explains all that stuff, not the card views where it shows all the events, but when you've clicked through to go to an event, there's a little tab that says event chat. And so people can ask questions and post back and forth in there. We will eventually have a specific messaging system for the host to be able to just one-way message everybody. We're working on that and seeing if there's issues and problems. We don't want that to get abused or whatever. But if there is something that everybody needs to know, about let's say a change in venue, or, oh, hey, we had to change the rules, or whatever the deal was, we want to be able to have that kind of thing going on. So that's probably something that's coming. We've updated since we launched the app in, like I said, just a couple days before Christmas. I think we've upgraded both the iOS and the Android version, probably each. I think we've made at least 6 or 7 updates. So we're constantly, almost every week, being updating, adding new features. Our next big feature that we hope to have before Gamma in mid-March is we want to launch group and club support. Okay. Not so much around here, and by around here I mean in the United States, but over in the UK, clubs, especially for wargaming, are huge.
Yeah.
So and they don't generally game in stores. It's usually some sort of place that they've rented, or they might do it in a community center or whatever, and they have specific nights where they do it. So we want to be able to help support that too. So we're going to be launching club and group support, like I said, hopefully before we get to Gamma in mid-March. So that'll be another feature as well.
Nice. Now, after, let's say, a year from now, what's it going to look like in terms of app functionality and user base and whatnot?
It's hard to say. We're going to really stick closely to what people respond most to. Like I said, with my YouTube channel, I started kind of going in one direction, and then I sort of kind of moved to another direction when I started to see A, the need for it, and B, the response. So that's why I started talking more about how to get into gaming and how to start and how to get into painting and the hobby and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see kind of where, we basically just want to make this something that allows people to be able to find, stores to be able to post their stuff, people to be able to find stores, people to be able to find each other through looking for players, doing all those types of things. One future kind of what we'd like to do, and we're not quite started yet, but we're about to get there, is we want to start creating kind of our own content. We want to start, we're going to talk about kind of behind the scenes, and we've got, YouTube plans and stuff, and obviously that's kind of my thing. So we're going to start doing some of that. But then at some point after that, we're kicking around the idea of making it so that we might start doing game reviews for different things and making content like that. We don't know if it's going to be more text-based. We don't know if it's going to be more video-based. If it's going to be a mixture, probably a podcast or something like that, so that it's not just, here's this app and you can use it, but there's also this app. And then also it becomes a little bit of a destination to find out more information about, whatever, amongst the 4 different main genres. So there's that.
Cool.
We're kicking around the idea as well of looking at conventions and how we can work with conventions to become, because a lot of conventions have a hard time getting their events. It's, if you go and find the convention, then you can kind of find the event if you go to their website, or maybe they only print it out on paper and all that kind of stuff. So we want to see about doing maybe some work with that too, and being able to work with conventions. You can find the convention maybe in a convention list, or maybe you find it under the event listing, and then you click in and then you kind of expand and see the things that are going on at the convention. We're not completely sure on that, but those are some of the future plans that we're looking at.
That'd be cool. So basically, let's say it would be a separate menu where I could look up 40K, or if I was interested in a Mantic game or Dead Zone or Protos games or anything like that, I could click on that game inside the genre.
Yeah, at some point too, we may start. Well, we're definitely going to probably start doing eventually we're going to have a search, so that right now, if you're posting an event, you put in the title generally of the event, or not only just the title of the event. The title of the event might be, game night at such and such store, or D&D 5th Ed, or whatever. But we also have a slot in when you're making events where you can put in the title of the actual game. So Magic the Gathering, Star Wars X-Wing, whatever. So that once the database has grown and we have a lot more people posting a lot more stuff in there, you'll just be able to do a straight up word search. This is the thumbs for typing on your phone. But you'll be able to do that and be able to look just for, I want to find X-Wing. And then you'll see everything X-Wing related in your local region. And it might be a store event. It might be a gaming group that just plays X-Wing. It might be a looking for players notice that says, hey, I'm new to the area and I like to play X-Wing and these are 3 other games. And so you'd find all that information. So that's another thing that's also coming hopefully soon, is a title search. We're going to build a database and then be able to cross-reference it against pretty much everything within the app. So if you're also just looking for X-Wing and in the store description they talk about how they sell X-Wing, then you can go there too and be able to see that trigger. So yeah,
I think a tag system would work really well. I know, having Giga-Bites, we sell so many different games. To be able to tag each game that we do sell would be really useful.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Nicholas says, Sweden ? Yes, it's worldwide, right?
Yes, when we first launched, there was an issue in that we were only planning on launching really in the United States. And then we changed our minds just before we launched. When we did that, we forgot to change we basically were requiring you to type in a zip code. Well, really only America kind of uses zip codes. Everybody else uses postal codes, which can frequently have letters and numbers in it. So right when we first launched at Christmas, only people in the United States could use it because the little keyboard only took numbers. We fixed that right after Christmas because we fixed it on Android first because Apple, actually, their App Store staff completely shuts down from like the 23rd to the 28th.
Wow.
You can't get anything reviewed. You can't get anything updated. So we fixed it as soon as possible. And then as soon as we did that, then it was immediately kind of worldwide. So there's store listings for I think nearly every country. And so, like I said, right now, I know that we're starting to see more in Germany because we've had a couple of stores verified over there. We had a bigger cafe/store in Seoul, South Korea. So yeah, if you've got a local store and you're listening to this or watching this and you're anywhere else in the world, reach out to your local store and say, hey, you can get on this and whatnot. And they can contact us and then we'll verify them and then they can start using it and posting their events. But as a normal user, you can also currently, the only place you can post events is in stores. The reason for that is because it's a public space and we want to make sure that people aren't trying to invite people to their house and things like that. Mm-hmm. We're not against that concept, but we have to put more safeguards. We have to put reporting, like the ability to report a user or report an event. And we also need to put the ability to block into that. That is kind of coming all part and parcel with the club/groups add-on, which, like I said, is coming in the next 30 days or so. So once that happens, then people will be able to post, because clubs, especially clubs and groups, one of the big things is that a lot of clubs and groups, like I was saying before, don't play in game stores. Maybe they play at community centers, or maybe they play, like in the UK, there's not a lot of play space in game stores generally, so they end up playing someplace else. So we're going to have them be able to put in a non-game store address. But right now, if you as a user who's not a game store wants to put in events and have people come and play Settlers of Catan at the local game store, you can do that, and then it's a safe place for people to meet and that kind of stuff.
No, that's great. I know that, we always encourage our players that anytime they want to post in the groups and whatnot, but people to look for, post that into the app is going to be awesome. Daniel DeBusk from Georgia says this app is awesome. Thank you. But he says something about confirmation input field is covered by the buttons if the keyboard is up.
Okay, I'll take a look into that. If anyone's got a question or anything like that, they can email me at Adam, ADAM, at Iamgamefor. So it's IAMGamefor, which is GAMEFOR.com. And then if they've got some sort of issue or anything like that,
ADAM at Iamgamefor?
ADAM, yes,
yeah, okay.
ADAM.
I posted that into the chat on Facebook.
Cool, excellent.
Nice. Cool. Wow, that's awesome. So we covered a whole lot in this interview. We talked about your history, getting into the YouTube, which is awesome. Congratulations on 70,000. Looking forward to the next 30,000 to get you over 100,000. When do you get your YouTube play button? Is that 100,000?
It's at 100,000. Depending on how things go this year, that might, for me, happen by the end of the year, but I'm not 100% sure. It might be early 2019. So we'll see. Like last summer, I had a couple of videos that did really, really well, specifically one about 3D printing in wargaming. And when a video does really well, it has a tendency to cause your subscribers to kind of grow as well, because when you have a video do very well, YouTube basically raises the video rank on your other videos, so you start showing up better, in other people's searches. And that video itself, because it was getting so much traffic so quickly, also did a lot of that. So I had a really good summer for subscribers. Things have kind of calmed back down to normal right now. But if I do have another thing kind of hit like that, then I could probably hit 100,000 maybe before the end of 2018. So yeah, then they mail you that play button and all that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. What's been your most fun videos to make?
I mean, the videos with Sam are always a lot of fun. I enjoy making the convention videos, like when I go to conventions and stuff like that. Very few people seem to be interested in watching them. When I go into YouTube and I set it to order all of my videos by most views, The convention ones are always way down the bottom. I think that if people don't go to conventions, then they're not interested in finding out more about it. Because I like to go to conventions, I love to watch videos from conventions I've never been to, because it's kind of like you get to sort of like poke your head in through the monitor and look around and see what that convention's like. And that to me is really interesting, but it's not for everybody. So, but I still enjoy making them. I just don't put as much effort into it. I guess I don't. A couple of years ago, I tried to make like 10 or 15 videos at Adepticon. And then just nobody watched them very much, And then the next year I decided to make no videos at Adepticon. And I didn't really like that either. So I still make some videos at Adepticon. Honestly, last year, talk about one of the most fun videos. I did a video last year where I talked to 7 different pro painters during Adepticon. And I asked them all the same 6 questions.
That was one of my favorite videos.
Right, thanks. I appreciate it. The questions all came from my patrons on my Patreon page, where I said, what questions, when you were a beginner, when you were a newbie, what questions would you want to ask a pro painter? So I got like about 5 questions that I thought were the best. And then I added my own 6th question, which was, how many times have you accidentally drunk your paint water?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And so I just went around and found different people that I either knew or I had other people introduce me to, and then interviewed. So I remember interviewing, I know I'm going to miss somebody. There was Sam, there was Vince Venturella, who I already knew, Chris from Mini Wargaming, who I already knew, Tom, who I already knew, Tom Ailes. I know there was both the Wapples, who I knew tangentially, but then finally actually met really for the first time, Kathy and James, Tommy Back, and I think Jessica Rich is the last one. But yeah, it was really interesting because I could ask. Basically, when I edited it all together, I put the question on the screen, and then I put the responses, and then I originally was going to put them all in the same order over again, but it actually worked better to sort of switch them around. But it was so interesting to see how completely different everybody was, in their answers.
Oh, yeah.
It just really helped to show that there's no right way to paint miniatures. There's no right way to kind of have your journey and go along that way.
And there's no like right way to have a finished product. Like, it's all
Exactly.
art, right? So it's not meant to be. And for me, I paint for tabletop because I literally don't have. I want to say like 90 something models that I have to do before Star Wars Legion comes out.
Sure, yeah.
It's like 70 Chaos Cultists, so
Yeah,
they're not going to look beautiful. I'll tell you that.
I generally paint for tabletop as well, and like I also mentioned in a video, or later 2017. One of the things is that when you keep doing it, you do start to you get to a point where you hit a plateau and you don't get any better for a while, but you do get faster. And that's really kind of heartening when you're looking at a huge pile of metal or plastic that you have to get through. When I used to look at 12 models, I was like, oh, this is going to take me so long. And now I look at 12 models like if they're all basically the same thing, like skeletons or space marines, or their outfits are basically kind of the same and the paint colors are going to be the same. I look at 12 as like, that's easy. I can whip through that real quick. So that's kind of nice when you kind of get that point in your paint career or journey or whatever. So yeah, that's been interesting to kind of see. But like I said, that video did pretty well. So I'm thinking about trying to do another video sort of like that this year at Adepticon. We'll see. Mini Wargaming Dave and I during LVO talked about maybe trying to get something together during Adepticon as well. I would like to make more narrative videos. I did two videos years ago called Tales of the Tabletop Minions. It was episode 1 and episode 2. Episode 1 was me and another guy, and they're basically like short films or like little stories. We were across from each other at the table, and then I got a text, and then I was trying to answer the text, and then he's surly about it, and he gets a text, and so he starts answering his text, and then we're not texting each other, but we're basically answering our texts, and then we both get done, and now we've forgotten whose turn it is. But we each think it's the other person's turn. So there's a lot of like non-speaking, just camera back and forth, looking at the other, that kind of stuff. And so I want to make more wargaming narrative short little films like that maybe this year. I've got 2 good ideas. One of them, the script, I've got to figure out the ending. I know how I want it to end. I don't know quite how to get there from where I've written. And the other one, I just need to find the time. And I've got all the parts and the pieces and the scripts and everything's all done. So I want to use those. Again, they don't get huge views, but I've gotten positive feedback with it, and I just enjoy making those types of films as well. They're kind of fun.
Have you seen Brother Steve yet?
I don't think I have. But
Okay, I'll send you a link afterwards. Anyone from Giga-Bites or Atlanta knows about Brother Steve. I brainstormed the idea randomly. I was like, what happens if we took the voice of the Space Marines from Dawn of War and then had him talking to one of the employees of the store of Giga-Bites?
Okay. Cool.
So shenanigans start happening from there.
Yeah.
But I'll send you that one. I'll send you that link. Just look up, for anyone watching, look up Brother Steve. I think if you look him up on YouTube, you'll see on our Giga-Bites page, you'll see it. It's pretty funny. We're definitely going to make some more of them for sure. I'm in Cincinnati, so driving down to Atlanta is like a 7-hour trip. So not every weekend I can do that. What are your favorite war games that are coming out for this year? Like upcoming ones.
Yeah, that's a good question. I just got a copy of Wreckage, the second edition, which is like post-apocalyptic. Yeah, I got a pre-release of the PDF, which I actually talked about in my Sunday show this past week, and then yesterday here at work I got the printed copy, which I think I have here. No, wrong zipper. Here. So yeah. This is their new second edition. Their old first edition was half this size. It was like a 5x8 digest, but the new one is this big, huge, this big, nice, full color kind of insides. And that's, again, a post-apocalyptic skirmish game that I enjoy quite a bit.
Do they have their own minis?
Yeah, they do. They have 150 plus different miniatures that they've produced over the last 6, 7, 8 years.
What's the company?
The company's called Hyacinth Games. Hyacinth, which is a type of flower, I think. But I think the website is rec-age.net.
WRECK?
Yes, -age.net. And
cool.
So they've got a line of minis. They've got the book. That's a lot of fun. And I'm like I said, I've looked through the PDF so far out of this new one, and I am enjoying that quite a bit. I also picked up 2 new games they're not necessarily super new, but they're new to me, that I picked up at LVO. One was Relic Blade, which is a really kind of fun, not super simple, but kind of like a couple steps up from that fantasy skirmish game. I really love the artwork. I really love the models, and the rule system is kind of interesting too. So yeah, Relic Blade I picked up, and then the other one that I picked up there is a game made by Zombie Smith, and it's called The Rifler's Handbook.
Interesting.
It's based off of, they used to produce a game, I think they still do as well, but their original first game was called This Quar's War. Have you ever heard of that one? Quar is spelled Quar, and it's basically these weird little aliens that kind of look like bipedal aardvarks.
What?
Yeah, they have like these long kind of faces, and they eat insects and whatever, I guess. But it's this whole planet, and that's what makes it the planet, and it's been at war for 3,000 years. And it's kind of like a World War I sort of thing. There's a lot of like bolt action type pistol, like rifles, and there's trench warfare, and they wear helmets that kind of look like it. But everybody always kind of looks real downtrodden because it's been wars for forever, But when the original book came out, and I love the artwork and I love the models, they're great, their own great model line. It was a big combat game. It was, you had 60 guys per side or something like that. So I was always like, that's cool, but I don't really want to go down that road. Well, back in, I guess, a couple of years ago, they produced this new book, which I think I also have in my backpack. I swear I did not plan this, but they're in my backpack. As I've been reading both of these. So yeah, the A Rifler's Pocketbook is basically a skirmish game. It's a tiny little book, and now instead of playing with 60 or so guys, little Quar guys on the side, you're playing with, I want to say it's maybe 10 to 12. Mm-hmm. So that makes it a lot more accessible for new people to get into. And again, really super interesting mechanic. You always have at least 3 activations in your turn, but you might have 4 and you might have 5, but you don't know. So what happens is...
Use a token system?
No, your opponent draws a card, and it will either say 3, 4, or 5 on it, and they know how many you have, but you don't know. So you get through your first 3, and then you ask them, do I have another...
Ooh.
And then they say yes. But they don't have to tell you have 2 more. They make it, and then you do your 4th activation, and then they'll throw it on the card and say, okay, well, you've done your 4. But then if you did your 4th, then you're like, do I have another? And then they can say, yeah, you do, and you got a 5. And so it's interesting when you can kind of like you don't know. It's the fog of war thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a really interesting mechanic. But it's really interesting. Like they've been making the game for years, new skirmish version, so it's much quicker and I want to say super easy. It's not a super streamlined game. It's not. I would not say it's even as streamlined as say Age of Sigmar. It's a little bit above that, but I wouldn't say it's nearly quite. Well, it's maybe closer to 40K as far as rules density and complexity and stuff like that. But again, like I said, the models are super cool, little weird sort of kind of aardvark guys with rifles and bayonets and things like that, and little
that visual bipedal
canteens.
Aardvarks.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It is. So that's the stuff.
You made a video about skirmish games a little while.
To finally realize, I mean, Games Workshop specifically in the last 2 years has completely turned things around, and they've finally started to realize that they need new blood in the industry. The entire industry needs new blood, or eventually it will die. So that's really, I think, where the big benefit for skirmish games is coming from, and that's where you're seeing a lot of manufacturers jumping. I don't want to say jumping on the bandwagon, like they don't mean it. They're just finally like understanding this is a good tactic to help us sell more models and get more people into the games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if anyone's watching on Facebook, for some reason the app that I use to stream stuff just stopped the broadcast, but we're back on now, which is good.
Oh, okay.
So I think we only lost like 30, 45 seconds, which is not too bad. Considering I caught it pretty quick, which is great. But for those of you who are just catching up, we were talking about skirmish games, but also games that are releasing. What are your thoughts on Star Wars Legion?
I know a lot of people are super interested, and I don't get me wrong, I do enjoy Star Wars. I've been a big fan. I saw the original in the theater when I was a kid. My mom and I were actually going to see the movie Benji with the dog. You know, the old Benji movies from the 70s. We were going to see Benji, and we bumped into some neighbors from around the block in the parking lot. My mom was talking to them, and they had just come out of Star Wars. And so she said to me, "Well, do you want to go see Star Wars instead?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I don't know what my life would be like if I had said no. If I would have decided instead to go, see Benji and not go see Star Wars, I'm sure that there was a big kind of fork in the road there for my life, maybe metaphorically. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so I've been a fan for years, obviously, but I just watched a video last night on YouTube about, like, are we reaching peak Star Wars? You know what I mean? Like, is there just too much now? Because there's a new movie every year or every other, month, it seems like. And so that's kind of an issue. Secondly, I watched several demos at Gen Con when they announced it, basically. And I'm not sure, I don't know. The fact that there's that weird bendy custom ruler seems odd to me. It makes sense for a game like Armada, which is where it came from. But it doesn't make sense to me, at least in my opinion, as a game on a normal flat, where you're moving people around. It just seems like it's one of those things that Fantasy Flight's like, well, we can make cool stuff, so we'll put cool stuff in the box. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, but do I need it? Can't I just use a tape measure? Why not? And then of course the custom dice. Most regular miniatures games, for the most part, use regular 6-siders or 10-siders or 8-siders or whatever. But to have custom dice with all kinds of weird symbols on it, I just don't know if it's a necessity or not. I don't know. Frankly, the models to me look okay, but they're not spectacular. So yeah, all of these things kind of mixed together just does not particularly make me want to leap in with both feet. I noticed also what happened very quickly, it seems, with Rune Wars. Like they put out Rune Wars last year, and it was just, I don't know. So I'm not sure. I mean, they hit an amazing out of the with Star Wars X-Wing. But Star Wars X-Wing was also pre-painted, so that is very easy. I'm sure you've seen it at your store. Like at stores that I go to around here, I see Magic players playing Star Wars X-Wing because they don't have to paint it, they don't have to build it, and it's got cards. So for them, they're like, hey, this is awesome. But if you then go, hey, look, would you like to play Star Wars Legion? They're going to be like, I got to build and paint these guys, so no. You know what I mean? So I just, and that was the same thing with Rune Wars. People that I talked to about Rune Wars when it was first announced said, this is super cool. It's a cool miniature game, and it's all pre-painted. And I was like, no, it's not pre-painted. And they're like, well, they're showing them pre-painted here. And I'm like, yeah, but if you read... And a lot of people were like, oh, it's not pre-painted? Well, then I'm not as much interested. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm dubious. I mean, obviously, it's got a huge marketing thing behind it, and it's got all of Disney and all that kind of stuff and all that. But I don't know. For me, I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to be a bad game. I'm saying I'm personally not going to be probably interested in playing it. I have a suspicion I will probably get a copy of it with my swag bag at Adepticon.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I didn't think that they were going to, because initially they were saying they were going to release the game in February. So I thought, well, if it comes out in February, then we probably won't get it in the swag bag. Last year, the swag bag that comes with Adepticon, if you pay a little bit extra to get the swag bag, last year, everybody who got the swag bag also got a copy of Rune Wars, which was like an $80 or $100 box. So then people started thinking, well, are we going to get Legion from them this year? And I was originally thinking no, but then when they just recently said, okay, here's the launch date, and it's the first day of Adepticon, I have a suspicion that everybody's swag bag is going to have a copy of Legion in it. So I could be wrong, but we'll see.
I'm very curious because, with the fact that they do unpainted models, is that like one of those things where the industry, the miniature side has always been unpainted, often unassembled models, and they're trying to appeal to that? Because I know X-Wing and Armada are super popular, just being able to pop the model out of the box and then immediately plop it down and play, and it looks good,
Right, and that's one of the reasons that those games are so popular amongst people who are not particularly interested in the hobby. People that are interested in the hobby and that kind of stuff, some of them went towards something like Rune Wars, but because of the custom dice and the little cardboard rulers and then those kind of dials that they sort of had and all that stuff, I think that some people who were more interested in miniatures game were like, I'm not sure about all these extra weird mechanics. So there's kind of a disconnect there. I'm not saying that companies shouldn't try new things, but I think that was maybe part of the problem. And then I didn't feel like there was a lot of marketing behind it necessarily. I think they did some sponsored content on a bunch of different YouTube channels and things like that to show it off, but I think that was about as far as it went. So I don't know what the legs are overall. Plus the story, like nobody really knows the story of Rune Wars, which makes it of a tough hill to climb. People know the story of Star Wars, so that's fine too.
I mean, people know the names of the vehicles by heart. Like, I know
absolutely.
ATRT, ATST, Z74 speeder bikes.
Right, exactly. So that kind of stuff will help, I'm sure. And I know that a lot of people will probably buy it. I just don't know that I'll be particularly interested for the reasons I kind of mentioned. But it will probably do well. It will be interesting to see how well it does. Again, because it's aiming more towards the people who are willing to build and paint. A lot of the people who played X-Wing, not all, but a lot of them will probably look at it and go, yeah, but if I got to build it and paint it, I don't think I can. Because it seems daunting. Those people could, if they really wanted to, they could, because the techniques are not that difficult to get around. It takes some learning, but it is more difficult than, say, sitting down and playing a video game. But that's the issue that our industry kind of has. It takes a sort of a certain type of weirdo to be interested in sitting in the basement and painting little tiny people. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think luckily it's becoming a little more normalized in the grand scheme of things, which is great. Like I didn't even get into it really until 2 or 3 years ago. And when I did, it was just like, hey, let's do it.
Yeah, nerd culture in general has exploded over the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, with all the superhero movies and obviously all the new Star Wars stuff and the explosion of board games and Magic is doing better than it's ever done and all that kind of stuff.
D&D with what is it called?
Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, all that type of stuff has really helped to blow up the stuff that we kind of, to some degree, some of us probably kind of hid away from our friends and family, because we didn't want them to think we were weird. And now that stuff is becoming a good deal more normalized. So that's just super helpful for our whole kind of industry. And that's also one of the big reasons why we also wanted to pull the trigger on starting to do the app when we're doing it, because we wanted to make sure that the people who are interested in this can find the other people who are also interested. So
yeah, I know the industry is not anywhere near saturation. Like,
oh no, I don't.
Entertainment industry is not. Video game industry is still not saturated.
No,
I mean it can be saturated for like smaller developers maybe, but in the grand scheme of like who can play video games, it's certainly not.
Yeah.
They're still selling tons of consoles, so I think the opportunity for miniatures, tabletop board games, etc., to blow up is just, the potential is huge, and the app's going to go a long way, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping, definitely.
For sure. We're going to do our best, I know, at the store to promote the app. It's going to be great. You just let us know in the future what we can do to help promote it as well. This interview has been wonderful.
Oh, absolutely. Well, great. Thanks. I appreciate it. I will make sure to send you some. We just printed up some like 8.5 by 11 kind of like flyers that stores can put up saying our store's events are on Gamefor, kind of, and the web link and all that stuff. So I'll make sure we can send you some of those.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And if you can look up Uncle Adam at Tabletop Minions on YouTube, he has a Patreon. You can look it up there as well. Make sure to subscribe. You have a special Patreon stream for your patrons who are $4 and up. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the $4 tier and up. That's Uncle Adam's are regulars, and I have I post special, I post things that just they can kind of see, but I also once per month do a live stream. It's predominantly just for them. Although about 2-3 months back I screwed up and it got sent out to everybody, so there was a whole bunch of people in that one, but that was not intentional. But it's just Tabletop Minions on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and
it's all one word, or 2 words?
Tabletop Minions, all one word, pretty much in all those places.
Yeah, you'll see it has a little TM for the icon, so really easy to see. Adam, thank you so much for joining me today. Y'all, hope you enjoyed the interview. We went on for a nice long while about all kinds of stuff, and hopefully we'll have you on again in the future as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Sweet, awesome. Have a good day, y'all, and enjoy your tabletop gaming. If you're at Giga-Bites or in the Atlanta area, come by and play tonight, this weekend. Last week we had the X-Wing Championship, which was 139 players. So we had no open gaming space at all, it's fun, but at the same time it's very rare, especially because we're a 9,000 square foot store. So we had to actually build out a whole bunch of tables and stuff. It was awesome. But if you're in the Atlanta area, come by and play. And next time you're in Atlanta, Adam, we'll love to have you at the store.
Sure, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.